Try to guess where we are right now. I'll give you a sec. Okay, have you made your decision? Alright. Okay, you're wrong. This is actually where we are. The Devil's a Part-Timer is one of the most mysterious pieces of propaganda I've ever witnessed. Like, who would genuinely believe that fast food workers are capable of smiling or feeling good emotions without a gun to their head? Like, the show's not even trying to be realistic. I've worked 2 fast food jobs, one at Chick-fil-A. Before you fucking say anything, I worked in the back. We genuinely felt like the Jim Crow South. You have some nice, safe for work gospel music playing in the front with purebred Aryans on register. Meanwhile in the kitchen, everyone got at least some melanin. All the managers use whips and we're all chained to our station. Basically it was a plantation. Then my Wendy's job, where genuinely nobody could give more than 2 shits about the food they were serving people. There was this one scene where the McDonald's promotional android offered to generously heat up some baby food for this struggling single mom. When in reality, we would see the same situation, and we'd just serve him some baby food. Of course, it's not supposed to be baby food, it just looks like it. But I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say here. What's the difference between these 2 places? If you guessed everything is different, then you're just flat out wrong, because obviously they're the same place. The same concept applies to what this very show does to our fast food industry. This show is a gentrification machine that when I first watched it, I took offense. No, that's a lie. I was like 10 years old when I first watched this show and I loved it to death. So, where did it start and how does it end? Devil's a Part-Timer, as soon as we saw that title, had us frothing at the mouth for it. It seemed so whimsical and novel. Like, we're all so restless to see a prince of fucking death work a 9 to 5 for 12 episodes. Hey, listen, it was like 2013. I was still an infant and Taylor Swift was born in a GMO lab. When I first watched it, I thought the show was amazing. But I was also like 10 years old, so I'd watch this and go like, this shit flames. Then immediately after, binge In Another World with my smartphone in one day and be like, oh shit, it's competition. So I want to rewatch it in 2023, a decade after, to see how it holds up. Oh, and also, it actually never crossed my mind that a season 2 for the show existed. I'm a little scared, to be completely honest, because I haven't heard a single person talk about this. It's probably dog shit. So, let's get on with it. You know those shows that just get it right on their introduction? They attempt a flying bile flipper flap on the first episode, and they stick their landing perfectly. The point I'm obviously alluding to is that the opening of the show is probably the best it could have been. Not that I can say that about the other 90% of the show, but for now let's at least try to stay positive. So if you don't know about this show at all, one reason that it's distinguishable from the rest, and by rest I mean Isekai, is because it's like your generic high fantasy Isekai, but an ingenious spin was put on it. This is the spin in question. I'm honestly in disbelief that something so innovative could result in human thought. But this is not the first time this series blew my mind. The show opens with some lore told to us through some narrator talking about Enta Isla, which is the fantasy land that for once doesn't turn out to have one city in the entire world that looks like some iteration of this. And apparently the resident demon lord of this area is up to some malicious stuff. He's trying to manifest destiny in the realm of the humans, but they're all haters, no glazers, so he has to fight all of them. Until finally, he's overwhelmed by some Giga Chad hero who literally single-handedly destroys the Devil's army in 3 separate continents. And this hero finally launches their own attack on the Devil's castle. They battle it out until Mr. Edgelord here is forced to retreat with one of his generals, and for their strategic retreat, bro just opens some random portal that goes to a place that he doesn't even know. Like, bro could've ended up in fucking... and you know... yeah. But ultimately, they end up here. Pause. I want to take a few steps back because I covered the first 5 minutes of the show in a way that doesn't really sell it as how I hyped it up to be. Basically, I described a plain donut, but now I have to glaze it. I'm sorry. After I watched the show, I'd rewatch bits and pieces of it from time to time over the next couple of years, but this is the scene I'd revisit the most by a long shot. Why? Because I genuinely think it sets up a beautiful transition to the cold seriousness from what once was to what it's going to become. We'll get to what it's going to become in a little bit, but first, this single goblin scene is the most genius sequence in the entire series. It depicts a goblin savagely murdering some person in cold blood. So why is it genius? Well, one could say that lays in stark contrast to the very foundation of what Isekai represents as a genre, by infants for infants. Or maybe it serves as a metasexual deconstruction of Goblin Slayer, as the author clearly intended for the audience to consider this one lucky. Why the fuck am I making Goblin Slayer jokes in 2023? Oh, okay. Okay, I'm done now. The real reason this scene is a cinematic masterpiece is because it's callous, brutal, and just downright savage. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what's coming for me. My point is that millions are being killed like this in probably a similar fashion. This desperate war is conveyed as a struggle for survival. When we get to where the hero is introduced, this banger is played, which I'm not even joking. This was my ringtone for like a long period of time. It was bad. Instead of speaking Japanese, the characters speak their own fantasy language. Yes, I'm not even joking. They made up their own fucking language for this anime. And it sounds believable. After realizing how the tides have changed in the war, the Devil's General, Alciel, goes on about how the battle is lost. Then, without even letting the man finish, the hero cuts off his monologue and aims for the devil's head. And besides, it's time to go. Then the camera pans out from the castle with echoes of cheering humans booming throughout the land, as they're all just happy that he's gone. Then, the monstrous devil responsible for the deaths of millions stranded in Tokyo. No magic, broke, and starving. And to add salt to the wound, they also look like humans. What proceeds for the next 15 minutes is some of the funniest moments in anime. I could just imagine the author after writing this premise. You could probably imagine the sheer comedic potential of this setup, and bro did not hold back. Their first interaction with humans are the cops, who think they're LARPers who are also foreigners since they can only speak it in fucking Enta-Islian. And obviously after committing a mass genocide against humans, they're reluctant to get in a wheeled vehicle with them that you can't even see where the horses are. So Alciel hits them with one of these. Well, it's not a total defeat, because the devil's able to extract some information about the world, and he's able to devise a survival strategy. And I honestly cannot think of a better way to introduce this scene other than playing it.
残るはフドゥさんやで活動拠点を手に入れる。俺たち家が探してられます。
どんな条件の物件をお探しで？
Bro, coach, ja Jackson, Ausschau. Ich sehe jetzt Walkbe, Hopbe, Herz Runner, hat Kram Baby Cry, Raise. Whack! I big Jamix hat my.
This episode is crawling with these rare moments in anime that just give me a full belly laugh. Like another good one was when Alciel is going to test out if he still has magic left, and he like. This shit is just peak funny. You cannot just not laugh at that. But if you thought that was good, you clearly have not seen the landlord scene.
あなた方が今回入居を希望されるお二人ですもんね。
こちらのアパートの隣に住んでらっしゃるオーナーさんです。
千葉美希です。美希は美しいに輝くと書きますの。あ、でも気軽にミキティと呼んでくださって結構ですのよ。
So yes, you get it. It was funny, and the first episode was honestly quality. The rest of the episode is where the little jump in time happens, where the devil has his McDougal's job and Alciel is the working yaoi stay-at-home dad. They're trying to sustain themselves while also trying to gather enough magic to go back to Enta Isla. And everything's chill until the legendary hero shockingly returns and she's a woman? Cut. And that is episode 1 of Devils of Part-Time. Pretty good. I mean, maybe my 10-year-old self was cooking with this show. Was my thought process walking out of the first episode. That is until... The show in a couple of episodes will take a dive, but what the first episode set up for the rest of the show was that its humor will be based on the irony that someone capable of this is facing everyday earthly challenges, while also being chased by his arch nemesis. A similar comparison would be like placing Hitler in one of those guys from Inglourious Basterds in like Delaware or some shit. So at least, I think this is a pretty good setup. So how do they fuck it up? So now what we expect to see next is Satan, Prince of fucking Death, assimilating a little bit too well into his new world and slowly forgets his main objective. And then his arch nemesis, which I'm sure is a surprise to every living biological thing on this planet, who is a tsundere, sees that he's becoming less like this and more like this, and views killing him as more and more unnecessary. And that's exactly what happens over the next couple episodes. I mean, the entire series. And I'm not even talking about just season 1 here. The whole show is practically crawling through this description I just gave every episode. But, you know, all is right in the world. Because, you know, this is comedy. Who cares about plot and all that bullshit if it's funny, you know? Although, I'm afraid that this show is a lot like SpongeBob. In season 1 through 3, or even 4, you'd have those ageless satirical works of art that anyone will laugh at. And then seasons 5 to whatever they're on now, probably like 13, 14, the jokes will have like the equivalent effect on your brain as just taking it out of your skull and spinning it in a blender. Devils of Part-Timer is a lot like that, but instead of seasons, we're talking about episodes. I have counted how many times I've laughed throughout the entire show. Before episode 4, this is how many times I've laughed. This is the number after episode 4. And that too is only because I honest to God lost it when they pulled an SAO on us. I just wasn't expecting that. And then I laughed another time because it's something that happened in season 2 it's just so... But, you know, we'll get to that later. So, like, what actually happened after episode 4 ended? Maybe it was genuinely just the author running out of jokes, but there's gotta be some reason that from here on out, it's just a comedy drama. Don't get me wrong, the show tries, but it's like... You know when you're lazy and you don't feel like buying more toothpaste, so for the past month you've been squeezing the flat tube? It's kind of like that. It gets old to the point where there's nothing left in there to squeeze. No joke can be told the 6th time and still make me laugh. Like the show keeps doing this with Amelia the hero getting jealous over like this 16-year-old's chest size. It wasn't funny the first time, to be honest. Why would it be funny the 10th? But by far the worst sin that this show commits is that for the rest of the season, nothing really changes. It's just the same dynamic with Alcel being the gay stay-at-home dad, Satan working, and then this new guy Lucifer who just leeches off of them. I mean, sure, a few more characters are introduced, but it's boring. So can I say that this show falls off? Yes, absolutely, 100%. In episode 1, we get the most cleverly executed masterpiece of that goblin scene. Then in episode 8, we had this scene where the main villain of the arc is just being a creep to the McRollins employees for the 7th time. First time I saw him, I thought I was gonna like throw a Pokeball at them. And then this weirdo turns out to be the one to do the SAO shit to Amelia in the climax of this arc. And then Satan saves her. The end. So now, with disappointment after disappointment, something needs to be done. The gimmick is done over dead. Personally, I think the show needed the One Punch Man Season 2 treatment. The author of OPM was just like, I'm not even gonna let my gimmick get old, I'm gonna just do something else. End quote. And oh shit, okay, new protagonist? We needed something big like that. Then I watched Season 2 for the first time. And well, I can definitely tell you that they tried. Actually, all right off the bat, I wasn't even confused. I was fucking dumbfounded on what the hell was going on in the show. Okay, so be me for a second. Episode 1, everything seemed pretty normal, except for the small child. There's an extra character, which is pretty weird because I literally know nothing about them. So I was wondering if maybe for some reason some content was skipped over in the production of this. Wait a second. This small child. Whose is it? So I'm not really one to show much emotion while watching stuff, but the way my jaw dropped like a fucking cartoon character upon this one scene. All right. So they walked into like this bathhouse place, right? With all the main cast plus this kid. Then some lady who works there questions their relationship.
That your wife?
You could say she's my baby mama.
What? I'm at a loss for words. So you're telling me Satan and the woman sworn to slice his fucking head off did it? What type of random fanfic BS is this? I was actually so distraught after I watched this. I literally searched up word for word. What happened to Devil's a Part-Timer Season 2? And through that Google search, I discovered something even stupider than the writing of the show. Devil is a Part-Timer Season 2 is actually apparently Season 3. And this is the one that is actually Season 2. And you might be like, no, Kimbo, you're retarded. That doesn't say Season 2 anywhere. It just says Devil's a Part-Timer. Yes, exactly. Hence my confusion. But I realized that Studio 3HZ are actually masters of encryption because we fell right into their trap. You see, the thing separating these two seasons are the exclamation points. Yep, you can see it now. They were playing 3D chess while we were playing checkers. So after hard spoiling myself, going back to the actual Season 2, not to mistake that with Devil's a Part-Timer Season 2. I'm sorry, I just can't get over it. This is so stupid. What is this show? I gained a very warped image of what the events in this season might look like. Although it started out pretty normal, and by normal I mean that it picks up where the end of the Season 1 left off, and by that I mean that it's aggressively boring. Covering this would be a waste of time to me and especially y'all, so that's not happening. But there's this one scene that sort of just kicks off the season. So the scene starts out with a comically large apple falling from a gate to the demon realm. Then somehow, don't even ask me how, but this whimsical situation, which had the potential to produce some theoretical laughs, turned into a conversation that ended with the butt of the joke being Amelia the hero getting really, really mad over someone calling her flat-chested. Then it turns out that the apple has hands. Wow. And upon further investigation, the apple turns into this small child. Alas, Ramu. My stress levels immediately came down because I didn't know what these Isekai authors are capable of pulling. That first episode of what's really Season 3 got me thinking some blasphemy was going to occur this season. So anyways, the baby plays its plot device very well, when the first thing she does when she wakes up is to literally point at the hero and devil and to say, Dada! Mama! This might be a little nitpicky, but this just feels like the laziest way to introduce a plot device. Like it genuinely just fabricated into their dimension from nothing with no explanation or context. But I guess I shouldn't be complaining since at least we have something to shake the game up a little. So, how does it turn out? Well, this leads to, honest to God, one of the single stupidest scenes in all of anime. Okay. Oh, I'm pulling my hair out. This girl Chiho is someone that I haven't really talked about all too much because I don't know. I feel like the author's only purpose in mind while writing this character is for bait. I don't know, just think about it. This character is 16 years old. She works at a McDonald's, has an obsession with the guy who's also working at McDonald's, and is also many years older than her. And consistently throughout the show, all of the older women shamelessly bicker over comparing their fucking chest sizes. So, anyways, the scene I'm about to talk about opens with the most baffling opening frames I've ever seen. The first shows Satan normally just working his shift. Nothing unusual yet. But before we're ready for it, the camera pans over to most likely the most retarded action ever taken by a fictional character. Chiho brings Alice Ramu to the McDonald's while she was crying for her, pointing to Satan. This is the biggest self-report I've ever seen in my entire life. At this point, I was wondering if this character was hired as some undercover suicide bomber to take down the devil where it hurts. And then immediately all of his coworkers assumed, rightfully so, that, the devil fell for the bait. Surprisingly, the boss, who, of course, was witnessing the entire shit show, doesn't cancel Satan. She just gives him a long, drawn-out explanation of societal expectations and blah, blah, blah. She's basically just yapping. I don't even know what the point is of this whole interaction at this point. If Chiho was actually a covert operator, then her character arc would be forever remembered in the same vein as Thorfinn or Eren. Although, I don't think that's the case. So, is this still a comedy show? Is this all some build-up to a joke? It seems like the curveball of this season was just to facilitate some horrifically contrived drama. And, well, yeah, I was exactly right. Maybe the author realized that the ChatGPT prompt kept regurgitating the same straight trash, so he decided to genre swap. It's actually here that I think the show ceases to be Devil as a part-timer. It's practically unrecognizable from what once was, even down to the animation. This, for one, of course, was just hella disappointing. I might joke about it and call these later seasons filthy imposter amalgamations, but I truly do want the show to live up to the potential that I know it could live up to. High hopes with this series is seriously just harmful to the psyche. This is honest to God my face when I sat down and watched the hero Amelia and Satan spending 3 episodes farming, and the climax of the arc was Satan using his devil powers to stop like some petty thieves or something. I watched most of season 2 and honestly skipped around in some of the episodes of season 3, and my one observation is one that just breaks any chance that this show ever had. Nothing changes. Amelia is still, I hate to say it, but she's genuinely just some generic tsundere that never shows a hint of change. Satan and Asiel are still LARPing. I don't even think it's worth anybody's time to talk about any of the episodes in detail because they're all so forgettable, and the show lost its identity in such a pathetic way that I don't even think I should be talking about this show anymore. This video was meant to be about Devil's a Part-Timer, not whatever this is.
Yeah, 365 days in a day spent up in a screen of purple haziness.